Hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. So, my friends, there is a pernicious cultural force. Well, both a cultural force and a force that is a moral force as well. An immoral force, is probably say. And that force's name is collectivism. And this force has swept across the American political dialogue, swept across world politics even, manifesting all across in different countries around the Western world, and especially in the non-Western, the Eastern world. In fact, this force was actually originated and birthed in the Eastern world. And this force, my friend, is called collectivism. And it is one of the most biggest challenges that anyone who enjoys the idea of a free society, anyone who enjoys the idea of personal liberty, anyone who enjoys the idea of a limited government, anyone who understands the fundamental orientation of the human being has to deal and contend with this force in every specter of life. But this force is actually seen as a good thing by many people. So let's first ask this question. What is collectivism? Collectivism is not only a political strategy, but it is also a mentality. It is a mentality which dictates that there is no individual interest and there is only group interests. It is a mentality that dictates that everything that occurs in the political realm occurs generally and not specifically, or at least that it should occur generally and not specifically. That is collectivism. Now, this idea, when you take it from the abstract and apply it down to contemporary politics, manifests in many different ways. If you've seen people, such as ANTIFA, marching in a formation, in a group, towards a particular cause, and ignoring their individual orientations, ignoring their individual self-interest, and existing solely for the sake of the group, you are seeing a manifestation of collectivism. If you have seen some very far-right nationalistic groups talk about how America needs to be an ethno-state and how only a particular kind of person can exist in America, you are seeing a manifestation of collectivism. When you see any idea that tries to collapse diverse thought or tries to collapse complexities under a single thing, under a single principle, you are seeing the manifestation of collectivism. So the collectivism, I like to say, is the we're all in it together mentality. That's one of the outcomes of collectivism. And it's not just that I'm going to be here to support you. It's that, no, my destiny is inextricably tied with your destiny. And our destinies are based upon one single thing. That's collectivism. Now, of course, this idea is philosophically untenable. At the fundamental basis of reality, at the fundamental basis of society, the individual lays there. The individual is born a bare and naked man, but he is reinforced in his individuality. He is reinforced in his moral understanding as he continues to exist within a social context. But that moral understanding must indeed come from a force outside of those social contexts. So not only is collectivism, as it is conceptualized popularly in contemporary politics, philosophically untenable, it also manifests in many different ways, and those different ways bring their own set of consequences. So, for example, whenever you have a political action committee manifesting for a particular cause, and again, the individuals involved in it are not acting as themselves, they're acting as the embodiment of the general idea. For the sake of the general idea, they are engaging in collectivism. Does this mean if you join a political organization, you're not an individual anymore? Of course not. But it's about where do you stake your claim at? Where do you stake your values at? So, there are two kinds of collectivism. At least I like to say there are two kinds of collectivism. There is material collectivism, and then there is ideological collectivism. Both of these are correlated and interrelated, but I like to put both of them in the same box, or in different boxes, because they manifest in different ways. So let's look at material collectivism, and let's talk about some of the general ideas thereof. So, all collectivism rebels against a necessary condition for human life to operate, and that is the condition of ontological liberty. My friends, liberty is an all-encompassing action, a prima facie truth, not just some abstraction, not some dream, a prima facie truth confirmed by the actions of all people. As the law of non-contradiction would say, you cannot You cannot destroy liberty without engaging in liberty. Liberty is a ubiquitous force. What material collectivism does is destroy the individual's role in various social functions, and then contradicts the necessity of liberty by, again, using liberty, which not only is a definitional contradiction, it also leads to disastrous consequences. So the idea of material collectivism is predicated upon the idea that the individual exists for the sake of something greater, as I mentioned before, and this greater thing is the general abstract idea of society. For the material collectivist, society is this massive organism that can be measured and understood only through the movements of all of its parts together, and not through understanding its individual parts independent of this invisible metaphysical force. So they enslave each other to the society issue. This is precisely what Joseph Stalin did in the Soviet Union. So what happened in the Soviet Union when the Bolsheviks took over, they consolidated individual property into collective property called kolkhozes. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Kolkhozes. Now, of course, collective property is a misnomer. It's impossible. No one owns anything if something is not owned individually. We'll address that later. But so in these kolkhozes, there were no salaries, and there was only a share of what everyone produced according to their needs. This is the old Marxian adage in action: to each according to his ability, to his needs. That's what was happening in these kolkhozes. And so peasants' labor, the peasants of the Soviet Union, their labor and products, including their meat and their grain, were forcibly confiscated by the Soviet authorities for the sake of society, for the sake of this sort of collective idea that exists outside of them that they never could see, but the people in the Kremlin could easily see it, according to this model of organizing. And so these collectivizations were loosely predicated upon this sort of moral falsehood that man's labor, and therefore man's self, because our labor is an extension of ourself, man's labor and therefore man's self is obligated to others, and is justified through a utilitarian calculus. The Soviet Union had these farms collectivized so that they could produce more food for urban populations, because of course scarcity was a thing. So in 1929, Stalin ramped up his efforts, and he demonized landowners called kulaks. Kulaks, for you guys who do not understand Russian history, kulaks are essentially individuals who kept their land when the Bolsheviks came a-knocking, and kept their grain. And so Lenin called these people vampires and bloodsuckers. Now, of course, famine eventually struck Soviet Russia and killed about 8 million people. And of course, this is one of the many consequences of the collectivization of the Soviet individuals. So, but beyond the existence of consequences, beyond the famine, beyond the inefficiency, beyond the peasants hating that their property and therefore their rights were violated and confiscated by the Soviet government, beyond all of that stuff, beyond the consequences, there is a moral reason, a reason built into reality, a metaphysical reason as to why the collectivist society is untenable. Isabel Patterson, the famous libertarian philosopher, commented that the collectivist society, I quote, "The collectivist society is planned for a world of two dimensions, in which nothing is conceived as occupying space or causing displacement. Man is conceived to be everywhere at once, and nowhere in particular in the collective. The concept is that of a world in a society in which there is no energy, neither kinetic nor static." Here's the point. When you exist in a material collectivist society, there are only two things, two dimensions existing, and they exist in stasis. And that stasis rejects the truth of our human being, that we are a dynamo of energy that change and vacillate between things and things. The human being themselves is a product of the sort of spontaneous combustion and cooperation of different factors in the universe. The collectivist society wants to eliminate this fundamental organizing principle of reality and collapse it down to a false framework. But of course, as I mentioned before, they're trying to use liberty and use the principles of liberty to contradict liberty. So my friends, the principle of liberty and an understanding of justice being the preservation of rights, sets any person, regardless of your political beliefs, against any form of material collectivism. And anyone who cares about reality will understand that since material collectivism rebels against the three-dimensional aspect of reality, it also is more than fundamentally untenable. But there's also the ideological collectivism. So this is the Black Lives Matter, the ANTIFA, the Minutemen in the 60s, the Black Panthers. All of these individuals are motivated by a singular ideological ethos, and many of them do not see themselves as individuals. They see themselves as members of a group laboring towards a higher good. Again, this is the same problem with material collectivism, but it manifests in a different way. Hannah Arendt, the famous political theorist, brilliant lady, I don't always agree with her, but brilliant lady, she said in her book, the part 3 of The Origins of Totalitarianism, there is a precondition for total domination to come about through citizens. There is a precondition. And what Hannah called total domination was essentially the subjugation of individuals under a totalitarian system. Hannah Arendt says that a precondition for total domination involves the de-individuation process. She says total domination, which strives to organize the infinite plurality and differentiation of human beings as if all of humanity were just one individual, is possible only if each and every person can be reduced to never-changing identity of reaches, so that each of these bundles of reactions can be exchanged at random for any other. The problem is to fabricate something that does not exist, namely a human species resembling other animal species whose only freedom is to maintain the power of this broad idea. So according to Hannah, this sort of identity-based thinking reduces all of us to a particular thing, which rejects the vastness of our humanity, and then reinvents the idea of freedom in light of this particular thing, and therefore leads us down a bad path. So just like material collectivism, ideological collectivism, my friends, contradicts liberty. But it does not do so in terms of policy, although it could easily, but in terms of particular social relations. Whereas material collectivism requires general actions, ideological collectivism may be more niche. So again, it rejects the ontological truth of the human being and ties their identities and reinvents certain ideas that are not corresponding to truth, but corresponding to subjective musings. This is a kind of ruthless subjectivism and relativism. So even if you don't agree with my political beliefs, if you believe that your political ideas are founded on an idea of truth or justice or equality or whatever, then regardless of your view, ideological collectivism must be rejected. We are far more complex than what single social quality may control for certain things. We are far more complex than the struggles of a particular race and saying those struggles define all of us. We are far more complex than being aggrieved people who think that our nation is being overran by people who hate America. We are far more complex than these ideas of hatred and these ideas of vitriol. We are far more complex, my friends, which is why we cannot necessarily, in truth, operate with collectivism. Because even if we are all in it together, we're all in it together for a wrong reason, a wrong purpose. So my friends, in conclusion, collectivism is posed with flair and presented as a necessary precondition for egalitarian equality, but proponents of collectivism cannot deny that their ideology does nothing but suspend individuals into a fantasy land and reject some of the basic organizing principles of reality, engages in rank moral relativism, and presumes to reject the fundamental building block of man, human liberty. No system like that can ever be just or efficient, and can only ever lead to a catastrophic end. Think on it. As always, my friends, I love you, and please stay pensive. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this message, please be sure to support my channel through PayPal. My PayPal is @officialcwatson, as you see on the screen. Any amount helps. Thank you so much, and stay pensive.